Thank you for having us. And we appreciate the opportunity to be here, appreciate being invited to a beautiful depot. Anything that preserves history, I'm all for, and so I'm glad to be here. I know Scott's glad to be here. We made the trip from Charlotte through all the traffic, and it's just a nice, quiet, peaceful place to be. I'm a throwback. I kind of feel like I'm from the old school, even though I was born in '62. I'm at the very dead end of the baby boomers. But I do remember drive-in theaters. I remember pulling up to a filling station and they'd come out and check your oil and wash your windshield. I remember when drugstores had soda fountains, and I remember when old hardware stores had potbelly stoves. So I am old enough to know that, and I very much appreciate that. And so that's sort of where I come from. I used to love looking at books and magazines that had old storefronts and streetscapes. Once I graduated from North Carolina, my parents gave me a camera. And the first thing I wanted to do is preserve some of the places on Franklin Street that were important to me. And that's the first roll of film was taken. I took pictures along Franklin Street. But what really got this started was what was going on in my hometown of Statesville. When I grew up in Statesville, we had not one, but two corner drugstores. We had a theater with red velvet curtains, a balcony, a stage. It was from the 1920s. And I saw all kinds of matinees there. We had a hardware store that approached being 100 years old. I went off to college. The theater was torn down to make way for a Wachovia bank building. When they merged with First Union, they didn't stay in Wachovia, they went to First Union. So then it was empty. They tore down a theater for that. The drugstores closed down gradually because of CVS or Rite Aid, it was going on. And of course the theater had been long gone, and the hardware store finally closed down. This is all about the time when I came back home to practice law with my father. And so I was very curious as to whether this was going on all over the state. So just as a hobby, I started to travel around the county and then the surrounding counties to try to capture some of those places while they were still around and to see what was still around. And so gradually I would leave the office on a Friday and take off and just go on an adventure. And it was wonderful. And I met so many fascinating people. And I upset my father because he was like, "Where's Mike? Why is he not in here practicing law and helping pay the bills here?" But over about a 5 or 6 year period, I gradually traveled long weekends to the farthest reaches of the state and traveled through all 100 counties. And it was about 15 years ago that I absolutely stumbled upon Saluda. I'd never, growing up in Statesville, my experience with the mountains was Boone and Blowing Rock. I had never been to the southern part of the mountains. And so I absolutely stumbled upon this town in about probably 2002. And I thought, is this a movie set? I can't believe a town really looks like this, you know? And so I had the opportunity on that day to meet Robert Pace and Charlie Ward. And I took photographs of the town. So this continued. I traveled about 30,000 miles. And then in 2005, I had been through all 100 counties. I had all these slides, a box of slides. What am I going to do with it? So I thought, why don't I publish a book? So long story short, I was declined by several different major publishers. I ended up doing it with a publisher in actually the town I live in, Davidson. My wife now laid out the book, and we published it in 2006. And it's been for sale ever since. I've sold about 10,000 copies. But what I enjoyed and appreciated most about that experience were the people I met, like Robert Pace and Charlie Ward.
We both live in Davidson. Our kids were friends, and I believe we both have the same probation officer, is that right? Kidding. But I have a film and television production company, and Mike, I knew of Mike's book because a lot of people really enjoyed it, and I was impressed that he had gone to every single county in the state. And we do make documentaries, and before I did this project, I did a series for A&E for a long time called America's Castles, which was kind of a look at the biggest homes in America. And when we did that show, I learned that it was neat to say that this was French Rococo design, or this was designed, but it was the stories of the people that brought the vitality to the inanimate objects that made that series really go. And so when I met with Mike and he started to tell me about all of these pictures that he took and all of these unbelievable stories, he would continually go back to the people, because it's the people that made them really pop. And that was what really interested me in this story. So when we did this film, we had literally hundreds of stories to pick from, and there were a few that he had handpicked because, like, we do a lot of work for the Travel Channel, and the Travel Channel has found that people travel to different destinations for really, outside of leisure and relaxation, for 3 reasons. And they are food, architecture, and history. And all of that, I believe, is represented in places like this, and places like this depot. It's important to keep them for the history, for the architecture, and for just a better sense of who we are.